So thank you everyone for joining us today. Happy October 1st. My name is Aimee Registe. I am the Policy and Advocacy Program Manager at Sister Love, and I'll allow my colleague Akayla to introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Akayla Galloway, and I am a Policy and Advocacy Fellow with If When How, and placed at Sister Love.
Awesome. So thank you. So I just wanted to give some context for why we're here, what we're going to talk about today. So today we're talking about abortion access. Excuse me. This conversation is necessary for us to have right now in light of Texas's near total abortion ban. So for those of you who don't know, starting September 1st, Texas banned abortions after 6 weeks. Which results in most pregnant people in Texas being prevented from having an abortion because most people do not know that they are pregnant at the 6-week mark. So that coupled with the fact that the Supreme Court chose not to intervene in that case, and they could have prevented the ban from going into effect, but they chose not to. It kind of lets us know that the court may overturn Roe v. Wade, which would make abortion illegal in many different states in the United States. And this is important to us because as a state in the South that has already tried to ban abortions after 6 weeks, this could have detrimental effects on pregnant Georgians. And I will allow Akayla to speak now.
Yes, so just a little bit more information on Roe v. Wade. If you follow abortion or are interested in reproductive justice at all, then you probably have heard of the case before. Roe v. Wade is a case that made it all the way to the Supreme Court in 1973. It challenged the constitutionality of Texas's criminal abortion laws. And at the time, Texas prevented abortions except in instances where an abortion would save the mother's life. So the question that was asked by the Roe case was, does the 14th Amendment protect a woman's right to privacy such that there is a constitutionally protected right to abortion? In the conclusion of the case, the court held that the right to privacy encompasses a woman's decision of whether or not a woman would like to terminate her pregnancy. But a woman's right to terminate her pregnancy is not absolute and may be limited by the state's legitimate interest in safeguarding the woman's health, in maintaining proper medical standards, and in protesting potential human life. The court set forth the following. Prior to the end of the first trimester of pregnancy, the state may not interfere with or regulate an attending physician's decision reached in consultation with his patient that the patient's pregnancy should be terminated from and after the end of the first trimester and until the point in time when the fetus becomes viable. The state may regulate the abortion procedure only to the extent that such regulation relates to the preservation and protection of maternal health. From and after that point in time, when the fetus becomes viable, the state may prohibit abortions altogether, except those necessary to preserve the life or health of the mother, and the state may prescribe the performance of all abortions except those performed by physicians currently licensed by the state.
Yes, and so I think the important thing to remember about Roe v. Wade has to do with viability. So viability is determined by a lot of doctors as being between 20 and 24 weeks. Up until that point, as Roe was decided, pregnant people could have abortions up until the point of viability. And SB8, which is in Texas, which is the 6-week abortion ban, and HB 481, which is the one in Georgia, that was passed in 2019 but blocked in 2020. Both of those would run contrary to Roe. And so we want to provide some more context for what happened in Texas for those of you who don't know. So Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed into law a 6-week abortion ban. The ban has been in effect since September 1st, and it prevents most abortions from taking place in Texas. It's particularly egregious because it emboldens everyday citizens to go after people who have aided or abetted another individual in getting an abortion, and they can sue them for up to $10,000. And so it kind of harkens back to or relates to, in many ways, the bounty hunters who would go after enslaved Africans during slavery. It's similar, but they are different, and some people do make those parallels.
HB 481 uses pretty much the same language as SB8. The definition of a natural person includes fetuses, or unborn children, as the text calls them, uses inflammatory and incorrect language because it refers to abortion as the killing of an unborn child. It talks about instances of sexual assault or incest and says that the pregnant person must have reported the assault to the police and filed a police report, which is problematic because a lot of times people do not report assaults against them. And additionally, it sends the message that a person's body must first be violated before they can exercise agency and control over their pregnancy.
Yes, I agree 100%. Thank you, Akayla. And so to give a little more background on SB8, which is very similar to HB 481, which is the 6-week abortion ban for Georgia. So SB8 bans abortion after 6 weeks. That is just 2 weeks after a missed menstrual period. At that time, it's a time when many people do not know that they are pregnant. It forces pregnant people to view a sonogram of the fetus, forces them to listen to a heartbeat if it's detectable, and the doctor or the person who is providing the abortion must give them resources that describe alternatives to abortion. It's required to see, the pregnant person is required to see the sonogram unless the pregnancy is the result of incest, sexual assault, or another violation of Texas's penal code and has been reported to the police. So the language of SB8 refers to the fetus as an unborn child, refers to pregnant people as women, and that's kind of problematic because we all know that not all people who are pregnant identify as women, and not all people who can get pregnant are women. The prohibitions in SB8 apply to anyone who performs or induces a prohibited abortion, also anyone who knowingly aids or abets the performance or inducement of a prohibited abortion, and even anyone who intends to perform or aid in an abortion taking place. Additionally, instead of relying on the state's executive branch to enforce the law, as is the norm in Texas and elsewhere in the United States, the state has allowed ordinary citizens to serve as bounty hunters, like I referred to earlier, and it statutorily authorizes them to recover at least $10,000 per claim from individuals who help a pregnant person exercise their own constitutional rights.
And here is why what happened in Texas matters to all of us. Seeing what we've seen in Texas and the fact that the Supreme Court didn't stop the abortion ban from going into effect, Republicans in 6 different states have introduced legislation that is similar to the abortion ban in Texas. Right now, it's Florida, North Dakota, South Dakota, Mississippi, Indiana, and Arkansas. They all have legislation that will criminalize abortion on their desk, and they will likely pass and be upheld by the Supreme Court. By not acting in Texas, the Supreme Court let us know how they feel about abortion access, and they will most likely overturn Roe.
And so when Roe is overturned, most states in the South will have restrictions in place that prevent abortions from happening. So without Roe, all the states in the deep South, with the exception of Florida, will prohibit abortion outright. That means that Georgia will either weaken or overturn abortion, and the 6-week abortion ban will be in effect. That means it will make abortion basically inaccessible to most people. And the people who will be most impacted by this are marginalized people who are lower income, who need transportation in order to get to a facility, those who live in rural areas and who don't have access to abortion providers within their town or community and things like that.
I would also like to add that when we talk about those marginalized communities, where most people I've seen, their response is, well, you can travel to a neighboring state, you can do all of these things. So I would just like to take a second, if we could talk about this arbitrary clock that we're up against. 6 weeks isn't enough time for most people to even confirm that they are pregnant. So if we take it into consideration from the time that I suspect that I'm pregnant, I personally confirm a test, like an at-home test, try to find time to schedule a doctor to get it confirmed in a hospital setting or a medical setting, and then weighing my options of whether or not I do want to carry this child to term or if I want to have an abortion. Then going to do the process of scheduling that abortion, getting the funds to pay for the abortion, organizing transportation or childcare, whatever it is. The time seems to be running before I even know it started. So that is one of the crucial things that we have to think about when we think about marginalized persons who may not have the time to make a decision in that 6-week span.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with Akayla. And I think it's important to know that I read an article that discussed how it isn't until the 4th or 5th week that most people are going to be able to positively test, like when they take a pregnancy test, it's going to come back positive. So that leaves 1 week for you to find an abortion clinic in your area, find transportation, find money, find childcare if you need it, ask your work for time off. That's a lot to put on people's backs, especially those who are lower income, who don't have, abortions can be expensive. They can be from hundreds of dollars to $1,000, depending on if you're doing the surgery or the medication abortion method. And so these are all things that factor into whether you're able to actually get an abortion. So these bans are very, very dangerous and are setting a dangerous precedent, not only in Texas and Georgia, but all over the country to prevent people from accessing abortion.
Yes. And that brings me to another case, Dobbs v. Jackson. The Supreme Court announced on Monday, September 20th, that it will hear the argument on December 1st in a challenge to a Mississippi law that bans almost all abortions after the 15th week of pregnancy. So again, we're seeing that arbitrary clock that we're up against, because we're talking about 6-week bans, 15-week bans, and these are all before viability, which is around 24 weeks. Mm-hmm. The case Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization was already positioned to be one of the most high-profile arguments of the 2021-2022 term, because the state has specifically asked the court to overrule its landmark decisions in Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood v. Casey, holding that the Constitution protects the right to have an abortion before the fetus can survive outside of the womb. That's basically the viability that we were talking about. If a fetus is viable, that means it's able to live outside of the womb. But the spotlight on the case became even more intense earlier this month when the Supreme Court turned down a request to block the enforcement of the Texas law that prohibits abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy. So that's that SB8 law.
Yes, absolutely. And so you may be hearing all of this information and thinking, what can I do about it? Is there anything being done around me to, protest these abortion bans? And you are in luck. In protest to Roe potentially being overturned, Sister Love, as well as many other reproductive justice organizations, are participating in a protest on October 2nd. So this is not to be confused with the Women's March protest. This is a Georgia-specific protest and is being facilitated by Georgia organizers, and it will take place on Saturday, October 2nd, so tomorrow, at 11 a.m. At Liberty Plaza. I will provide a link in the chat for you to sign up for the march if you're interested in attending. If you are one of our supporters and you do not live in Georgia, but you happen to live in the DMV, there will be a protest in DC on Monday, October 4th. This date was chosen because it's the first date of the Supreme Court's 2021 to 2022 session. And if you're interested in participating, we will post a link as well to that.
And also other ways that you can show support. We have a call to action, and it's basically the first step is being informed. So the first thing I would like to tell you about is the Women's Health Protection Act. The Women's Health Protection Act protects the right to access to abortion free from medically unnecessary restrictions and bans on abortion, including mandatory waiting periods, biased counseling, 2-trip requirements, and mandatory ultrasounds. The Women's Health Protection Act would create a statutory right for healthcare providers to provide abortion care and a corresponding right for their patients to receive that care, free from medically unnecessary restrictions that single out abortion and impede access. Also, call your senators, call your representatives, and tell them to end the filibuster in the Senate. Locate your congressman, and you can find them on senate.gov or house.gov on their websites. Those will also be included in the chat. Find out who your representatives are, contact them, let them know where you stand on the issue and how much abortion access means to you.
Yes, thank you, Akayla. I agree 100%. I believe that you should find out, stay informed as much as you can. The Women's Health Protection Act actually passed in the House a few days ago, so that's a really good thing, but we need it to pass in the Senate. And for that to happen, the filibuster has to end. And so we want you to reach out to your representatives and your senators, let them know your opinions on this, tell them that you feel that abortion needs to be uninhibited. It needs to be allowed for all people to access it when necessary, which is when they do not want to be pregnant. So thank you so much. Akayla, is there anything else that you would like to say before we wrap up?
I would just like to say that reproductive justice is required for us to live in an equitable state. And in order for everyone to be a member of this society, we have to stand and uplift each other. That means respecting people's choice, respecting people's agency and autonomy over their bodies. So reproductive justice is justice.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I liked the part where you talked about, reproductive justice is justice and the bodily autonomy aspect, which all of us deserve to have that. It is a fundamental human right. So thank you so much to everybody who showed up for this live. Thank you to all of you who went in the comments and left your thoughts. We really appreciate it. Please stay informed. Follow Sister Love on all of our social media platforms. You can go to our website to subscribe to us so that you will get email updates letting you know what we're doing. If you would like to donate to us, we will also include a link in the chat so that we can continue doing the work to promote sexual health and reproductive justice for all. Thank you and have a good Friday.